Dr. Shannon Coates. I am what am I? I'm a singer. I'm an educator, pedagogy maximizer. I develop resources for voice teachers to maximize their pedagogy. In other words, to get better at teaching. So, no, just at teaching. To maximize their teaching. I am coming to you live. That's right, live from a little town that is north of Toronto in Ontario, Canada. Which is why you might think that I talk funny, but I don't. You just listen funny. Anywho, I am grateful to live and work on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, and the Wendake Neo-Watsio peoples. Hey, so today I called these live office hours. Do you really need another tool? And I called it that in a little bit of a facetious way, because I certainly do and have courses that are designed to give you more information, to have a larger toolbox, a larger teaching or pedagogical toolbox, if you will. And there's lots of reasons to have more tools to work with the singers we work with, right? There's lots of reasons. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't take another course, or you should, I'm not saying that at all. Or you shouldn't buy that textbook, or you shouldn't ask for more tools or get more tools if you want. I am not saying that at all. What I am hoping to communicate is this, something that I am calling the diagnose and prescribe model of pedagogy, which we have taken quite directly from the medical model of teaching, but also from teaching, from what we see in educational circles, which is I will tell you what you need to change, to learn, to fix. I will tell you because I am the person who has all of the knowledge. And my definition of expert is that I have all of the knowledge, and that my role is to prescribe, to teach in such a way that you change, you get the things that I think you need, and you get fixed, right? So this medical model, this diagnose and prescribe model, it's very prevalent in our industry. It's prevalent in the teaching, in all teaching, not just in voice pedagogy, not just in voice circles, of course. And it is a power over model to use. Do you not love how my brain just loses all of the trivia as soon as I'm talking to you? I'm like, and trivia gone. Oh, Brene Brown. I just needed a hot second to let my brain get to it. Woo! Anyway, Brene Brown talks about power over systems. And so in my mind, the diagnose and prescribe system is very much a power over system. And when we view ourselves in the voice studio as the expert because we have power, or because we have the things that the student needs in order to change, or because we have the things and the student does not, right? So if we are positioning ourselves in this way, this is what I would also consider a teacher-centered model of pedagogy or model of teaching. And so what that looks like then is we become quite susceptible to the idea that we are imposters and that we need more information, or else we are not doing our job, right? And so what happens then is we see the advertising for courses, for classes, for training that speaks to our feeling of inadequacy, right? It speaks to our feeling of imposter syndrome. It speaks to our feeling of not knowing enough, and therefore we aren't serving our singers, the singers we work with, well enough, right? So that's what the marketing speaks to. And the marketing goes something like this. Well, do you find yourself working with singers who have XYZ problem? Don't worry, I have the tool. I have the solution. You can increase your toolbox, or increase the tools in your toolbox, by taking this course. So do you find that all of the exercises that you're doing don't work on tongue tension, don't work on jaw tension? You can't get your singers to breathe properly. All of the singers you work with are XYZ problem, and you don't have the tool. Do you see how that addresses our teaching from the philosophical underpinning that we are the experts in the room because we have tools, we have the knowledge to diagnose what's wrong and to prescribe the thing that the singer needs in order to change or fix the thing, right? And so that presupposition means that when we hear, oh, you don't have all of the tools you need, it speaks to our imposter syndrome. It creates this feeling that, well, I don't know everything that XYZ person knows. I've never taken this kind of course. I don't know what mix is. I don't know how to do a belt healthily. That's the other thing that really speaks to our imposter syndrome and the marketing can get really icky around is, if you don't know this thing, your singers will hurt themselves and it's your responsibility to protect the health of the singers you work with. Nope. So is it good, beneficial, helpful for us to understand more about anatomy and physiology, vocal function, how belt works, what maybe jaw tension might show up like in a singer, what, I don't know, any other, other thing, what twang is, all of those things? Of course! How to tell Fach if you're teaching Western classical singers, there's a lot of shame around, oh no, like if you train this XYZ voice in this Fach and they're actually this Fach, you're hurting singers and you are a bad teacher, right? There's a lot of shame around that in the Western classical world. There's a lot of imposter syndrome around that about, how do I know if they're like this kind of tenor or that kind of tenor? How do I know if they're a mezzo or a soprano? How do I know if they're a dramatic mezzo or a, full lyric soprano? How do I know? And what if I train them in the wrong, right? Again, the underlying philosophy or model to the pedagogy is this assumption that we have to know all of the things, diagnose all of the things, be able to hear and understand all of the things in order to be able to be an effective teacher, because effective teaching is defined by how well we can tell someone what to do and how accurately we can tell someone what to do, or how quickly we can tell someone what to do to change their singing. And the consequences of us not doing that are that we feel lots of shame around health outcomes, right? So there's a lot of shame around that. So then what happens is we see the marketing for these kinds of classes, which are wonderful classes, don't get me wrong, wonderful classes. But we see the marketing and we sign up for these classes out of fear. We sign up for these classes because our imposter syndrome, all of the fear and anxiety around not serving the singers we work with well enough or effectively enough comes to the fore, and so we take the class because we're scared that if we don't take the class, we might not be serving the singers we work with well enough, right? So when we start to divest ourselves or challenge that undercurrent, that philosophy of diagnose and prescribe, that medical model in our teaching, that power over model in our teaching, yes, that power over model in our teaching, when we start to challenge that, when we start to deconstruct it, when we start to release ourselves from it, and we start to do truly student-led teaching, we start to decenter ourselves as the teacher in the room and start to understand our role as the expert as offering options and allowing and offering the information that singers need in order to make decisions for themselves, informed decisions for themselves. When we start to do that, then we take courses like all of the ones I've just mentioned. We take courses because that information is something we're really interested in, because we're excited to be able to offer it as another option within the studio. We're not scared that we may be missing something. We don't take it because we're terrified that we're missing something. Our imposter syndrome isn't the thing that is telling us that we have to take it. We're taking it because we understand that we are already teaching effectively, and that this thing that we're doing is going to help us to teach more effectively, not help us to diagnose more effectively. I know. The other thing that happens when we start to divest ourselves of this diagnose and prescribe model, when we start to really challenge it, is that the more information and knowledge we gain about vocal function, say for example if we take some of these courses, it actually becomes validating rather than embarrassing because I didn't know it before, right? So we get into courses and we start to say, oh, that's why that works, rather than, oh shoot, I've been doing this wrong the whole time, I'm so embarrassed. Because when I am working in a student-led way, when I am working in a student agency developing way, what happens? As I decenter myself as the center of knowledge and power and expertise in the room, and I start to truly listen to the singer, and I start to truly listen and to tap into what they find useful and ease-filled in order to create the tonal outcomes that they want, and as I start to guide and support as I turn my role from tell you what to do to guide and support you on your journey, the singers will find the things that work the best for them, whether you're able to explain it in like actual words or, you know, say the thing or not. And then when you get in a vocal function class, or you start to get more anatomy and physiology, or you understand mix better, or and you're in that course and you're thinking, oh yeah, that's why that was so successful. Because X, Y, Z. Oh yeah, that's why when I did this thing, or when the singer did this thing, it really got the sound that they were looking for. And when they did this thing, we knew that that wasn't the sound they were looking for. Even though I couldn't actually describe the physiological process because I didn't really know what was happening in there, I was willing to trust the singer to understand and to communicate with me what the process was, and I was able to work with the singer so that they knew what process they wanted and what worked best for them. And now I'm in this class and I'm going, oh yeah, that's why that's so effective. So vocal function information becomes validating, not embarrassing. I'm not in a class then saying, oh shoot, I knew I should have done that other thing. I knew I should have leaned into that, but I thought that what was happening was blah, 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 and it wasn't. And so now I have to go back and tell this singer to do it a different way. The third thing that starts to happen when we divest ourselves of the diagnose and prescribe model in our teaching, and when we decenter ourselves, when we move from the power over, when we start to do that work in the teaching, the circumstances where singers have a performance shift in the lesson, or they have like a mountaintop aha experience in the lesson, and then we know in our little hearts that they're never going to find that again on their own, that we're going to be actually trying to go back to that aha moment for the next 6 weeks, frustratingly try to go back to that aha moment for the next 6 weeks. We know, and maybe even we can't even find it again in the lesson. We may not even be able to find it again in the lesson, right? Because we're really searching for what happened there, and I have to describe exactly what happened there so that they can do it again. No, when we move from diagnose and prescribe, in other words, I've got to tell them what happened here so they can do it again, and we move into student-led, agency supporting, decentering myself as the expert to tell you what to do in the studio. And we start to then work with singers to say, oh, you described the sensation for me, terrific. And now I would love to hear it 3 more times. And which one of those was the most, whatever that description was, amazing. And so now let's do it at a slightly different key. And now let's do it with a tongue trill 4 times. You do it. You tell me which one is the most like that XYZ. Terrific. Now, where would you like to apply this in a song? Which part of the song can you see yourself using this new coordination? And I communicate that I am not expecting you to have this thing, to, first of all, to know exactly what is happening in your brain. I'm not expecting you, and I'm not expecting me to be able to describe the exact process. First of all, it's impossible. The process is so complicated. It's so complex. It's nearly impossible to accurately describe exactly what is happening. And it is pretty much impossible for me as an external person to describe what you feel like when you're doing it. Pretty much impossible. Which we try to do all the time, right? We try to tell people all the time, oh yeah, so that must feel like la 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 la, and you must be doing blah 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 blah, and then you're doing this, and this is why this is happening, and this is why this is happening. When I say, what happened for you? I'd love to hear that. Notice how I'm not saying, do it again. I'm saying, I'd love to hear you try this 5 times in a row. You tell me which one was the closest. What am I communicating? I'm not communicating that you have to have it 100% of the time, which is what we communicate when we're like, yeah, that was amazing. Now let's do it again and do it again and do it again. No, what am I communicating? I am communicating that you can find it again, and likely it's not going to be 100%. I'm communicating that I want the one that is closest of those 4 or of those 5 things. And then we're going to build on the one that was closest. I'm not going to try to get you to 100% again. That's not how learning works, my friends. It's not how learning works. Not how learning works. So when I decenter myself and I no longer have to tell you what happened in the aha moment, I no longer have to be like, yes, you did this, 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 and this, and that's why that worked. I no longer have to be that person. What does that mean? Now, the singer I'm working with has an understanding actually of what it feels like in their body. They have tools to come back to it, and they are not thinking that they have to get it 100% of the time. They are now thinking, okay, if I can just do this, like if I go toward it 5 times and I decide which one is the closest, then I'm going to take which one was the closest and I'm going to build on that. And then they start coming back to their lessons having built on the thing that they learned in the lesson, rather than I couldn't get it right the whole time. Like I was practicing, it was so frustrating. Can we try that exercise again so that I can get it right this time? And in your little heart of hearts, you're like, oh God, I hope we can get it right again. Otherwise I'm going to fail them. Otherwise, I'm a bad teacher. How come I can never get it? How come I can never get them to get back to that thing? Obviously, I don't know exactly what's happening. I should know more about what's happening. Right? What happens when we decenter, when we move away from the diagnosis and prescribe model? The singers we work with develop agency. We support them to develop agency so that they can self-assess and so that they can start to work in effective ways on their own. They have the tools to be able to work on the things that they want to work on their own, and they start coming back to their lesson saying, hey, I applied this thing in this song. Do you want to hear it? Yes. So those are just a couple of the things that start to happen when I'm working with voice teachers in this way. And when we start to, like I said, we start to confront that diagnosis and prescribe model, that medical model, if you will, when we start to deconstruct it a little bit, to use some words from the religious world. When we start to deconstruct a little bit that medical model and what that medical model or that diagnose and prescribe or that power over or that teacher-centered model, what that looks like in the voice studio, those are just a couple of the things that start to happen. Big things around taking out shame. Big things around taking out imposter syndrome. I know it's not called imposter syndrome, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. Big things about taking out that anxiety, about embarrassment, shame around not knowing enough. A lot of that starts to dissipate. The teachers who I'm working with often say, I didn't know the depth of my imposter syndrome until I started to work in this way and realized that I have what it takes to be able to teach effectively already. I just need to reframe some things. Let me know if you have any questions about that. Or if you've had this experience, like I know some people have had this experience where as you start to release this like diagnose and prescribe, I've got to know everything, I've got to be able to tell people what to do. As we start to release that, and I've got to understand the exact function of everything in order to be an effective teacher, in order to start to release that. Lots of folks have started to release that. That's wonderful. And so tell me some of your stories of what's changed for you. I would love to hear that. How do you know it's working? It's my favorite question. How do you know it's working? Okay. Have a great weekend. Talk to you later.